Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint by Sing Shong. Chapter 215. Real Revolutionary. Part 1. At this moment, I thought it was a bit of an overkill. I meant to say something similar, but I didn't mean to provoke him so much. Maybe I was too accustomed to giving cider to individual constellations. It was laughable. I wasn't Yu Jonghyuk, and I didn't have anyone giving me coins now. Didn't you hear it? The Demon King of Salvation. Jang Haeung ran to my side and exclaimed. Look at the constellation who joined out channel. A person from Earth. I was about to tell him that I was the Demon King of Salvation when I remembered something that he said previously. He already has a girlfriend. I shouldn't. Instead, I looked up at the sky where the light was shining. The constellation Nouveau Richer Snake Boss has jumped exceedingly high. This jerk must be pissed off, but he couldn't go on a rampage. A low-ranking constellation like the Nouveau Richer Snake Boss didn't have the guts or enough probability to make trouble in the demon world. The constellation Nouveau Richer Snake Boss is furious that a mere incarnation has destroyed him. What incarnation? Who killed this guy in the original novel? It couldn't be Yu Jonghyuk. The constellation Nouveau Richer Snake Boss is indignant that a constellation he has never heard of is opposing his will. The constellation Nouveau Richer Snake Boss is looking around for the Demon King of Salvation. This guy didn't know that I was the Demon King of Salvation. Well, it didn't matter. As long as he cared about the Demon King of Salvation, half of my purpose was achieved. Kim Dokja thought, I must gather constellations to this channel. This way, I can gain the upper hand in the Demon King selection which would follow after the revolutionary scenario. For this to happen, I needed word to spread about this channel. Even so, it was dangerous to blindly recruit constellations. If too many powerful people entered from the beginning, Bayu would find it hard to handle and it could be troublesome for me. At this moment, Nouveau Richer Snake Boss was becoming upset in the channel. The constellation Nouveau Richer Snake Boss starts to question the nearby constellations about the Demon King of Salvation. The constellation Nouveau Richer Snake Boss is surprised to hear the rumors about the Demon King of Salvation. He was a low-grade guy among the top people of this world. The constellation Nouveau Richer Snake Boss claims to have seen the Demon King of Salvation. The constellation Nouveau Richer Snake Boss is appealing against the accusations of the constellations pouring towards him. The constellation Nouveau Richer Snake Boss claims to have really seen the Demon King of Salvation. Therefore, the narrative-grade constellations didn't believe his words. In other words, the story only reached the arrogant lower-grade constellations. It meant the Nouveau Richer Snake Boss was a perfect fit for collecting such constellations. The constellation Nouveau Richer Snake Boss is gathering his gang. It was as I expected. New constellations have entered the hashtag BI90594 channel. If Secretive Plotter was in the same channel, he would have clearly sent me a message of admiration at my ploy. It felt a bit nostalgic. The newly entered constellations are revealing their modifiers. The constellation Nail-Eating Rat is looking for the fingernails of fallen incarnations. The constellation Dog who threw himself into the flames is curious about the channel's incarnations. Since there was a series of animal modifiers, he really had called his friends. Nail-Eating Rat and Dog who threw himself into the flames, they were modifiers that I knew were unknown even without looking at ways of survival. These bad guys were also constellations. The constellation Nouveau Richer Snake Boss is warning the Demon King of Salvation. The constellation Nouveau Richer Snake Boss declares that this channel has been taken over by the 12 Zodiacs Nebula. What was this? I had seen the 12 Zodiacs in passing in Ways of Survival. They were a nebula, but they weren't very cohesive. In addition, the majority of members were low-grade constellations. There wouldn't be a problem even if they became hostile to me. Kim Dokja thought, first, the number of subscribers has increased. Next would be to sort them. The larger the channel, the more loaches that obscured the water. Now that I wasn't free to use my status, I needed a constellation to take charge of quality control. It needed to be a constellation with a strong power but was moderately decent. They should be capable of crushing other constellations. Where could I find such a person? In fact, I already had the answer. Jang Haeung, what are you doing? Jang Haeung, who was typing something into the air, glanced at me with surprise. The unidentified wall is surprised. It seemed he was doing something similar. My eyes narrowed as I said, "You will die if you tell the other constellations about the Demon King of Salvation." I just wanted to boast that I heard the message. Then you will be punished. The Demon King of Salvation is a very, very scary man. Jang Haeung jumped and glanced up at the sky. He thought that the Demon King of Salvation might be looking at him from somewhere. Fortunately, there were no indications of unusual movements in the channel. Jang Haeung hadn't spread his nonsense yet. Jang Haeung noticed my glance and asked, "You know the Demon King of Salvation?" "A little bit." "Are you friends?" I didn't know if we were friends or not. "It is enough that he gave me a message to tell you." "What is it?" "He is looking at you." I thought saying this would be better. In any case, I had to take advantage of his power from now on. The constellation Nouveau Richer Snake Boss is looking for a place to relieve his anger. The constellation Nail Eating Rat is curious about you. The indirect messages appeared in the air, one after another. Duke Siswitz listened to the messages for a while, before opening his mouth with a frown. "Gather all the nobles at night." "Huh? But..." "You understood." The subordinate quickly escaped from the office, and Duke Siswitz placed a new cigar and placed it in his mouth. He looked slightly nervous due to the indirect messages of the constellations. I don't know who opened the channel. However, I can't let that opportunity go. It wasn't a formal channel. However, he could still take advantage of the channel to start the competition in the most advantageous position in the demon world. The other dukes haven't yet obtained a channel for broadcast. The modifiers of Snake and Rat seemed wrong, but they were still constellations. He didn't know the details, but this situation was a great opportunity for him to become a demon king. Marquis Ambrose watched the situation and asked, "Are you planning to face the revolutionary in a situation where the factory isn't operating? Once all the remaining executioners are dead, the revolutionary will gain the power to kill you. A ruler who lost all his subjects would be vulnerable to a revolution." That was the planned evolution of this scenario. However, Duke Siswitz didn't blink at all. Of course not. If the person who showed up now is the real revolutionary. What? By the way, have you decided which side you will be on? Huh? Ambrose looked surprised. I'm a Marquis of Gilabat. Duke Siswitz smiled and Ambrose realized the meaning of side. Are you? Ambrose's back was soaked with sweat while there was a very short conflict in his head. The Duke who obtained the first channel would be overwhelmingly advantageous in the selection competition. Many constellations would soon flock to this channel. In addition, Duke Siswitz had the most powerful story in the 73rd Demon World. Ambrose's worries didn't last long. I greet the new Demon King of the Demon World. The demon made a decision. Duke Siswitz nodded as Ambrose slowly knelt down. I entrusted the removal slaves to Aileen and Mark before asking Bayou to disrupt the broadcast channel for a while. It was to prepare for any possible problems. I didn't want the animal friends to hear what happened from now on. Jang Haeung, how many people are you talking to now? Jang Haeung looked me in the eye and replied. 3 people? One is the Black Flame Dragon. Who are the remaining 2? Actually, it might be 5. 5 people? To be precise, it is 9, but 9 people? If I add those who took longer to reply, there is 15 altogether. There were several distinctive features of the unidentified wall. One of them was the chat function that Jang Haeung opened not long ago. It was the ability to send messages to anyone with a modifier in the star stream. However, having this ability didn't mean everyone could use it like Jang Haeung. You talked to 15 people in this short amount of time? Well, it wasn't that hard. It was hard for me to talk to even one person. He was a really great multitasker. In short, 15 constellations and transcendents were talking to this guy. Those people with strong pride. I wondered how it was possible, but this was Jang Heung's true power. It was because of this power that Jang Heung was able to build a force of transcendence. Jang Heung watched my face and asked, "By the way, why are you asking?" I hesitated for a moment. This choice was very important. If I made a bad choice, my hard-earned channel could become ruined in an instant. I thought for a moment before slowly opening my mouth. "I'd like to call somebody." "Huh? Who?" I hesitated to reply. I wasn't sure if my choice was correct or not. Kim Dokja thought, "The one I will call now is beyond my control." It was really hard to get here. A damn scenario was a scenario, but the ones who really bothered me were the constellations. Those who wanted the bounty scenario were easy. When I thought about it, I came to the demon world because of my fate. Even now, I couldn't sleep when thinking of that time. After all these efforts, I came to this distant stage and opened a new channel. Now should I call one of them to this place? Chapter 216. Real Revolutionary. Part 2. What aren't you saying? Obviously, there were good constellations in this world. They were the constellations I read about in Ways of Survival. After Ways of Survival being a reality, there were some constellations that I reevaluated. Still, it didn't change that their essence was a constellation. I didn't know what my expression was like, but Jang Heung had worried eyes. "Is something wrong?" "No, nothing like that." "Then why are you worrying?" I was somehow hesitant to speak and shook my head lightly. Jang Heung stared straight at me and stated, "I would like to hear it." There was something familiar about this, and I couldn't help smiling. I closely examined Jang Heung's face. A sharp nose on pure white skin. Clear and deep eyes, below eyebrows that were drawn in a soft line. A faint guilt filled my heart. He's a kid who likes stories. Because Yu Jong-hyuk is a good person, this person should taste the bitterness of reality. Jong-hyuk doesn't listen to people. The other person should be a good listener. The result of all the comments I made was now in front of me. He had eyes to see the world, a nose to breath, and ears to hear the story. Perhaps it was because of guilt, but I spoke my first words unknowingly. There are people who think bad things. People? I nodded and continued, they are overall bad people. They bully or gossip about others, and even commit some terrible things. Jang Heung listened to the story and asked me, "Do you hate the people you are talking about?" I thought so, but I don't know. I didn't know if I was serious or not. Some people were better than I thought, and some people acted differently than what I knew. The countless words of Ways of Survival that I read in the past flowed through my mind. What is real about them? What is reality, and what is fake? I don't know very well. Jang Heung silently listened, despite my vague wording. How much time passed? Jang Heung thought about something. It's hard to understand what exactly is troubling you, so you want to know more about these people? What? They seem like bad people, but there might be some good people. Well, isn't that your expectations? No? Why did it sound so romantic? There was a backlash, but when I thought about it, this might be the problem. Jang Heung nodded and said, "Every now and then, too, you have to talk. Talk to the people." It would be useless to talk. Why? I couldn't explain it well. It was a helpless feeling that couldn't be described. However, it was when a person became most helpless that they were the most truthful. I think there is a huge wall. The fourth wall is looking at you. You and I are talking like this, but we're not really communicating. There is no such thing as communication in this world. The unidentified wall is looking at the fourth wall. Kim Dokja thought, maybe reality or the novel is all the same. I've read it for so long, and I still don't know. Maybe I will never know. I felt like I was mistaken, and that the moment I spoke these words, everything would change. This optical illusion was broken by Jang Haeng's words. I might be different from others, but of course, there is no such thing. What? Everyone has a wall and communication is impossible, that's obvious. I couldn't believe the friendly Jang Haeng thought so. It was a bit surprising. Then Jang Haeng continued, however, we still have to talk. Even if there is a huge wall, there is a person behind that wall. What can we say when there is a wall? Right on the wall. My mouth dropped open at the brazen words. If you shit or pee, you will leave something on the wall. That way, the other party will recognize it. Why would you do such a thing? The other person is beyond the wall anyway. Still, you should leave a mark. Does that make sense? There is no apparent meaning. Then? It is just important that you left it. The other party won't know, so why? At least the wall has changed. I was speechless for a moment. Jang Haeng spoke in a resolute voice. Then one day, someone might read it. I stared at Jang Haeng. Jang Haeng, who was born into this world because of my greed, lived a life unrelated to me. Maybe he became a better person than I thought. I laughed with some bitterness. I have one question. Huh? Did you talk to the constellations in this way? Ah, that. Judging by his hesitation, I must be correct. I had a bit of understanding of the minds of the constellations. They were the heaviest, but at the same time, loneliest beings in the universe. They were writers as well as those who watched the stories. Jang Haeng would have listened to them as he did to me. The constellation Nouveau Richer Snake Boss is looking at the cheeky incarnation. Jang Haeng looked up at the air at the same time. Thanks to Bayou's interference, the Nouveau Richer Snake Boss couldn't find my location for a while. Of course, this didn't last long. Jang Haeng asked in an uneasy voice. Is that bastard thinking of staying here? Perhaps. He had been embarrassed and was probably determined to ruin the channel. I thought for a moment before finally making a decision. Jang Haeng was right. Even if there was a wall, I had to write something on this wall. This was despite the fact that it might change what was originally written. I didn't want to be a person who only read. Jang Haeng, can you contact this person? Once I thought about it, I had been acting as a reader the whole time. In order to see the ending that I wanted, I had to create a new story. In fact, I had already warped reality. I just didn't know yet who would read it. Who? I didn't know if the constellations would comply with my suggestions. Now that I opened a channel, if that person helped, the revolutionary scenario would end without any problems. Then a message appeared in the air. The fifth night has arrived. Sinister flute sounds were heard. I looked around the industrial complex. In the raging fire, people were screaming. My expression hardened and I spoke towards the scattered Aileen and Mark. Gather all the citizens. The Duke was driven into a corner. It was obvious after the fourth night was over. The factory's operating power had been cut off by the kidnapped slaves. Thus, the Duke couldn't come out for the moment. However, the Duke led the nobles and emerged on this night. Kim Dokja thought, what is he intending? My mind was a bit complicated due to the variable of a new constellation intervening. In addition, the constellation I called hadn't come yet. It's fine. Let's think positively. This might be an opportunity. Yes, I didn't need to have a weak mind. I was now a constellation. I had done well so far and there wouldn't be a problem. Jang Haeng. Take care of the executioners. Absolutely don't get involved with the other nobles. I know. I ran through the streets using Way of the Wind and reached the place where the biggest fire was burning. How long had I been running? I soon saw a demon standing on the spire of a broken building. Are you the revolutionary? It was a long-haired demon engulfed in red flames. My face was tingling from the heat that emerged from his whole body. It was a stinging heat wave. I looked at the yellow flames and knew what this power was. There was only one person who used this type of story in the 73rd demon realm. Marquis Ambaros. He was the most powerful noble in the 73rd demon realm after the dukes. He was someone I would have hesitated to bump into before I became a constellation. However, Ambaros' expression was weird. I am Ambros, not Ambaros. I got his name wrong. I might be Kim Dokja, but even I couldn't memorize the name of extras. Ambaros kept muttering like his pride was hurt. You aren't fleeing despite knowing me. I thought you were someone with good knowledge, but you're just someone with good luck. You would be the lucky one if I ran away. Ambaros. I told you it is Ambros. Instead of answering, I raised the magic power in my body. Last time, I had fought using the status of a constellation. This time, the opponent was great and it wouldn't work against Ambaros. Thus, this was an all-out battle. The fifth bookmark, Kyrios Rodgrame, is selected. The exclusive skill Miniaturization LV3 is activated. The exclusive skill Electrification LV11 +1 has been activated. A yellow heat wave burst out from Ambaros' fist. It was the emergence of Brilliant Explosion, a skill of his story. He had the most impressive explosion stigma in the 73rd demon realm. The power was strong, but it wasn't difficult to avoid. The explosion range was large, so it was considered a long-range attack. You rat. The constellation Nail-Eating Rat hates the words of Demon Ambros. Ambaros felt it was difficult to deal with the smaller me with a simple explosion, and he changed his operation. The heat from his hands rapidly contracted and changed into a small ball. Die. The condensed heat was more intense around his hands. He thought he would push me in strength after reducing the range. It was a good plan, but he met the wrong opponent. I wasn't an ordinary incarnation. I watched the fierce incoming explosion and stretched out my fist without hesitation. The center of the explosion was deeply pierced by the blow, containing my magic power. My ears momentarily buzzed and the fragments caught in the explosion scattered in the air. The flames in the area were swept away and went out. Only a blue-white lightning was scattered everywhere. I heard a sound and my vision blinked white. The constellation Nouveau Richer Snake Boss is astonished at your strength. Ambaros couldn't be seen in the place that the blue-white lightning swept through. Maybe he flew away or he might have died. Oh my god. The industrial complex was brutally destroyed. Some of the citizens confirmed my strength and were kneeling. At this point, I didn't know how I was in a fight. If I returned to the scenario properly, could I win one-on-one with a few constellations? Your incarnation body can't handle the level of force used. A significant portion of your incarnation body has been damaged. Damn, it was starting again. Still, it was fine. It would be over before my body was in tatters. Weawa. Were they inspired by this situation? The citizens in the surrounding area started shouting. Revolutionary. Revolutionary. New constellations have entered the hashtag BI90594 channel. The number of constellations kept increasing. It was a different feeling from Baihyung's channel. Well, maybe because I thought of this as my channel. I went to the forefront of the battlefield and cut at the approaching nobles. Weawa. The Duke himself brought about his end by coming out without the factory. The wave of angry citizens gradually pushed the nobles. How long had it been? Finally, we arrived at the gate of the factory. The revolution is around the corner. Just a bit more. Someone cried out. However, the next moment, an earthquake occurred from deep in the ground. The confused citizens screamed and sat on the ground. Something seemed to stand up in front of me. A huge building, which had been sleeping like an old beast, was raising its body. There was an engine sound reminiscent of a steam engine. Soot filled the night sky and loud sounds tore at the eardrums. My heart suddenly sank. The factory was operating? How? Nevertheless, I couldn't afford to think about it. A giant fist struck my defenseless self. A few buildings were smashed and the steel frames shattered. I momentarily lost consciousness before coming back. Your incarnation body is seriously damaged. Enter the main scenario now to prevent the breakdown of your stories. Blood poured from my body, and the stories making up my body were shaken. Damn, my mind was in such a complicated state that I was caught off guard. Making such a mistake. Nevertheless, I couldn't understand, no matter how hard I thought. How was the factory operating? The constellation Nouveau Richer Snake Boss is pleased at the sight. The constellation Nail Eating Rat is enjoying your trials. A few constellations hope that you will suffer more pain. Damn it. I opened the channel, but none of these guys were on my side. The moment I gritted my teeth and raised my body, a familiar name was heard. The constellation Prisoner of the Golden Headband is holding his hair while closely scrutinizing you. Chapter 217. Real Revolutionary. Part 3. Really? The constellation Prisoner of the Golden Headband is looking closely at your face. Did the great sage the equal of heaven really come? The constellation Prisoner of the Golden Headband is narrowing his eyes at your attire. I felt a strange sense of stability from the gaze. It was a strange feeling to feel at ease from someone watching me. Prisoner of the Golden Headband. The constellation Prisoner of the Golden Headband is looking at you. The great sage the equal of heaven had yet to notice. He wasn't certain if I was Kim Dokja or not. Maybe it was due to the story covering my face. I thought for a moment before deciding to give him confidence. That's right. It's me. Silence filled the air. It was a tight silence, like someone was taking a breath. After a while, the constellation Prisoner of the Golden Headband is shocked by your identity. The constellation Prisoner of the Golden Headband is asking how you are alive. The constellation Prisoner of the Golden Headband is wondering why you are here. The message that flew only at me seemed like it was covering the sky. The great sage the equal of heaven. He isn't part of the absolute good or absolute evil system. He is of the neutral system. He is playful, but also indifferent. He doesn't easily connect with other constellations due to his temperament. This was the great sage the equal of heaven that I knew from Ways of Survival. One of the strongest constellations in Ways of Survival, who fought against numerous constellations and built up a ridiculous myth-grade story. Even so, he died a lonely person without any deep bonds to the end. The constellation Prisoner of the Golden Headband. I listened to the great sage the equal of heaven's messages while slowly closing my eyes. It was important to trust the information I knew. However, the great sage the equal of heaven. I'm glad to see you again. The great sage the equal of heaven was silent for quite a long time. We might both be constellations, but he had a presence I couldn't catch. Even so, at this moment, I felt like the great sage the equal of heaven was right in front of me. The constellation Prisoner of the Golden Headband has sweet lips for a long time. The constellation Prisoner of the Golden Headband is repeatedly grabbing and releasing his hair. The next moment, something fell from the sky. I unintentionally caught it. It was the hair of the great sage the equal of heaven. I couldn't help laughing. Perhaps this was how the great sage the equal of heaven showed his trust in someone. Your understanding of the constellation Prisoner of the Golden Headband has slightly increased. I spoke towards the great sage the equal of heaven. The fact that I'm here is a secret. Do you understand? The constellation Prisoner of the Golden Headband is nodding. The constellation was better than I thought, and he would keep my secret well. By the way, how did you come here? Before I could finish speaking, one wall of a collapsed building tilted and someone appeared. It was Jang Haeung, who appeared with dirt falling from him. Fortunately, the fighter was still unharmed. Yoo Jong-hyuk. Are you okay? The constellation Prisoner of the Golden Headband is making a strange expression. That reminded me, I was still selling Yoo Jong-hyuk's name. It was time to tell my real name to Jang Haeung. I asked about the outside situation. How is it outside? It isn't good. I thought I knew what was going on. The industrial complex was shaking like there was an earthquake. Screams of the citizens came from all over the place, and Zhang Heiyang's expression hardened. The Duke is turning the industrial complex into a ruin while looking for you. It would be strange if this place wasn't turned into a wasteland. Once the Duke started the factory, there was no way to stop it. However, it was impossible for me to retreat now. How are the executioners? There is only one left. He is good at running. The blood of the demons on Zhang Heiyang's cheeks covered up the aura of a fighter. It was a remarkable achievement, considering the short time. Take care of the remaining one. Then the Duke. As I spoke, sparks appeared around my face. My knees instantly lost strength. Hey! You, the amazed Zhang Heiyang ran over and grabbed my shoulder. My skin started cracking apart. Your broken story is collapsing. The exile penalty will resume. The durability of your incarnation body is at a dangerous level. This damn incarnation body wasn't easy. The nickname of Sunfish might fit me more than you, Jonghyuk. Bayu. Bot. I called out and Bayu's fingers moved through the air. Then a scenario message popped up. A new sub-scenario has arrived. Plus. Sub-scenario, story repair, category, sub. Difficulty level, D. Clear conditions, restore the durability of your incarnation body to a certain level. Time limit, none. Compensation, none. Failure. Plus. It was a scenario I had requested from Bayu in advance. Originally, it would be impossible to use the sub-scenarios for personal gains. A formal channel of the Bureau would have never allowed it. The sub-scenario has alleviated the exile penalty. Thanks to Bayu's scenario, the anguish of my incarnation body was reduced. The constellation Prisoner of the Golden Headband is interested in the way you use the scenario. 800 coins have been sponsored. Normally, I would have received a barrage of criticism from other constellations, but in this case, there wasn't a fuss, because there was no compensation. In any case, now I was in exile and had to constantly receive scenarios. I had to stick to this until I entered the main scenario. The acquisition of a sub-scenario has delayed the collapse of your incarnation body. I barely managed a sigh and met the worried eyes of Bayu. I deliberately smiled. I'm fine, so don't worry. Bayu moved her head and disappeared again. She had to manage the scenario throughout the industrial complex, so Bayu would be feeling hectic right now. The sparks around my body fell silent and Zhang Heiyang asked, "Are you really okay?" "I can hold on." "Where is Aileen?" "She is with Mark. They are evacuating the citizens." It was a wise choice. It was too unreasonable for the citizens to fight back as long as the factory was in operation. If I didn't know the real revolutionary was hiding somewhere. I moved and could see the atmosphere covered with fine dust. There were the bodies of the fallen nobles and the citizens. Is it going to end like this? Zhang Heiyang looked at the shadow of the factory in the distance and bit his lips. The transformed factory looked like a giant. It was an old giant spewing smoke from a chimney on its head. The giant's hand pulled out something from a nearby building. Quack. The dying noble struggled as he was caught by the hands of the factory. Looking closer, it was the Marquis I fought before. Duke. He shouted painfully before being crushed in the factory's fuel engine. There was the sound of teeth grinding. Heavy flames emerged from the power plant side of the factory as if it was satisfied. Now I was able to determine how the Duke operated the factory. Zhang Heiyang spoke in a weak voice. Using his own men as a source of power, how can he do that? It means he doesn't care about the industrial complex anymore. Why? Isn't this his industrial complex? I activated Lamarck Kirin instead of replying. It was to temporarily restore my body by using story fragments. Kim Dokja thought, this guy is determined to become the Demon King. A large voice burst out from the head of the factory and challenged the sky. Look, constellations. This is what you want. It was the appearance of a duke fully absorbed in the story he was making. How old was he, and how many years had he lived? All beings might just be children in front of the story. The Duke's words caused more constellations to enter Bayou's channel. Very few constellations are curious about Duke Siswit's actions. Maybe this was what I looked like. I was reminded of something. It is easy to attract the attention of the constellations. However, creating a good scenario is difficult. It was something the Dakibi king in Ways of Survival had once said. I thought this saying was correct. Then I had a thought. What was a good scenario? No, did it even exist? If we leave. Just wait a bit. I stopped Jang Haeung and looked up at the factory. The factory and the story weapons produced an unusual force that couldn't be tolerated by the existing probability. In other words, it was perfect for a self-destructive scenario. As expected, sparks burst from the joints of the randomly operating factory. I explained to Jang Haeung. Maybe his persuasion energy is lacking. It won't last long if he only has a few nobles. The factory's persuasion energy that was its fuel was made of countless story fragments. The story weapons consumed the persuasion energy and temporarily overcame the probability. It was easy to say that the factory was similar to my current incarnation body. Soon it would be caught up in a probability storm. However, unlike what I thought, the movements of the factory didn't become dull. The constellation Nouveau Richer Snake Boss is looking at Siswitz with pleased eyes. The constellation Nail-Eating Rat is delighted with Siswit's destruction. A few constellations are willing to pay for the probability. Damn, it was like this. There were those who paid the probability. Where is the revolutionary hiding? Once again, there was a huge earthquake and the citizens screamed in an awful manner. I leaned against the building for a moment before slowly walking forward. Jang Haeung hurriedly grabbed my arm. You will die if you go now. Can't you see that? I measured the durability of my incarnation body. Do I have enough power to get rid of this enemy? I didn't know. Can I kill it if I use electrification and Way of the Wind? I still didn't know. Jang Haeung, kill the last executioner. I'll somehow take care of the rest. Jang Haeung stuttered at my words. Why are you going so far? You can run away. You aren't a real revolutionary. I hate this damn story. What? It's so obvious. I ran towards the factory. The streets were mostly deserted. Most citizens were trapped inside their houses and holding their breaths. I looked at the scene and remembered Yu Jonghyuk of the 111th regression. The industrial complexes last night arrived and the revolutionary didn't appear. Yes, this was expected. However, I wished for a different story. Suddenly, a citizen bleeding against a wall reached out towards me. Revolutionary. What revolution? What was all this about? Why did so many people have to die? Why did this scenario exist? The constellation Nouveau Richer Snake Boss is staring at you. The constellation Nail-Eating Rat is yelling towards you. The constellation Dog who threw himself into the flames wants your destruction. The constellation sent messages towards me. Bayou struggled as she was forced to send the messages towards me. I waved my hand to indicate that it was fine. Honestly, I wasn't fine before, but now I was good. The constellation Prisoner of the Golden Headband is looking at you. At the very least, one person was on my side. The constellation Prisoner of the Golden Headband wants you to smash that damn scrap heap. I flew into the air.